starting the recording. Yay! Okay, so welcome to Theory of Everything. It's a weekly talk show where we gather, we choose a topic that is interesting for us. Thanks to Mendez, he gave me a big list of questions that he's interested in, so we chose animal rights today. So we're going to talk about animal rights. It's an open floor where everybody can share their opinion and express their own thoughts and be honest and sincere, hopefully. We encourage that, but we don't force anybody. So if you want to, hold on, let me put on the hand raises so everybody can participate and we can have some kind of order here. I don't mind chaos, but yeah, I think it's a little bit more challenging to hear everybody when more people talk. But after the official time of the event, we have free time, party time, after party. So you can stay and talk for a little bit longer. Okay, so yeah, I'm done with my introduction speech. It's funny how the globe is a little bit, tilted. I hope Mendez comes and fixes that, because when I try to fix it, it always just becomes pretty much the same, but in another direction. Hi, everybody. I'm just happy to see you again. Caligula and Paige and Marta Laswara, everybody. Oleg, nice to connect with you in my, have a English-speaking chat. So Alex is there. So he speaks Russian and English. So he enriches our experience in learning English. So yes, I think we are ready to start. Paige, you can continue your story. So I wanted to have it a little bit more in a frame. So yeah.
It's so awesome. So whenever I got here, it was just me and Azi for a second. So she was just asking about my son, his adjustment at school, and he's adjusting really well. It's a bottom line. I haven't. I'm the one that's struggling with the adjustment more. I talked to his teacher because he got a report card, which was the first report card that he was there for 2 or 3 weeks. And then one of his classes, he only had 1 grade. I think it could have been social studies or science or whatever. But anyway, it was a 78, which I'm not trying to be crazy about grades, but literally it was like a 12-week quarter or something. 9 or 12 weeks, but he only had that 1 grade. And it was a test. And he's learning to, he's much better now, even just a month later, I guess, at taking tests. But at that time, it was I think it was the test that he only took the front of the test. He didn't flip it over, because he'd never taken a test in his life. So he didn't even realize there was another side. The next day, she let him take the other side. And then he still felt it, and we went back and made corrections and got it to a 78. Anyway, I did talk to her about it,
Yeah, because I'm curious
obviously,
yeah. It seems like you both have a good connection, and but there's still some tension, and also transition is always difficult. Well, welcome to the world of our new reality. I think for the last 3 years, we've been all adjusting and transforming. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I can relate.
it was just, parenting is just hard, He's doing great, and that's all that matters, and I'm the one that's stressed out about it. Which is probably exactly as it should be. I think that's the way the planet intended it. So it's working out great.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm happy that he has some progress, that you have some progress in, and you're more calm about what's going on. Hey, everybody, and the topic is animal rights. Maybe if you have any thoughts or any... anything you wanted to share? Hi, I can hear you speak.
I just wanted to say that,
hey, Mystic.
Paige, if you ever want to converse, I have a 7-year-old going through the exact same struggles, so we can exchange notes.
Thank you so much.
That's so sweet. I love how the community is, becomes more, more than just talking about the different things. Cool. Okay, yep. It's very interesting that AltSpace has people of older ages than I expected, and then I see so many different people of different ages, and it's so cool to have this window into somebody's life where people from different countries have children, grandchildren, jobs, and different struggles or different successes and insights. Then that's really precious about Theory of Everything. I think that we have this little community of people who come together and discuss things. I even love the colors that we have, like purple and all these nice colors of enlightenment, let's say. So how do you feel? And maybe we can talk about, we can slowly but surely get to the animal rights, and discuss this topic, because I think the animal rights are such an interesting, you know, sign of a developed society, because the more primitive and poorer societies we see, the less people care about animals, because they're just the measure of getting some meat and different materials for our clothing, for everything, and they're just something different. They're not humans. They're different. They're just this or that, or they're just not enough to take them into account. But when you have a better, not a better society, but more of a developed society where people feel safer, where they have more opportunities, they start thinking about animals as somebody who has a soul, who has a different level. I take my words back, but because I think in many countries that are not very rich, but they have different beliefs, maybe because in Japan I know that people believe that every animal, every living being, and even trees and things, they do have souls, like Shintoism or Sintoism as they call it. They believe that different things have souls, and even the objects that are older than 100 years, or even some animals, they have their real souls and they can influence the reality somehow. So this is very interesting how they see the world a little bit different, from a different angle. Or maybe some Buddhist communities. Sometimes I heard a story about I think it's a real story, where they were trying to build a temple, and because they had to dig the ground for the basement and the foundation of the building, but they didn't want to harm any living creatures. I loved how during the meditation in my yoga class, first time when I heard that she said, let's not pray, but let's be thankful to our body and to our community that people love, and blah blah blah. And at the end of that big line of creatures that we wanted to be thankful to, she said, and to all living creatures. And I'm like, wow, that's a different perspective to things. When you want goodness for not only for people, not only for your family, but also for all living creatures. And that's such a different perspective that is seen, I guess, in Oriental, namely Buddhist philosophy. So curious, what do you guys think? How is it in your experience? How is it in your community, in your country, in your culture? What's the behavior, and what's the general picture of animals' rights and animals' place in this world?
I guess I can.
There, great. Let me give you a megaphone so everybody can hear you. Hold on. Are you Stefano, right? I don't see them. Invisible Man. Yeah, that's... Yes, if you... Okay, there. Mm-hmm.
Hi. Okay.
Yay. Now you're Visible Man. Audible Man.
Right. Well, my feeling is that, in my personal experience, I think that TikTok has done a lot for me personally, in terms of my kind of core feelings about animal rights. And what TikTok has done, it's, I don't know how many guys are on pages with books that have buttons. They can speak buttons, pressing the button. So it turns out that this speech. Okay, so this woman who works with children who are nonverbal, right? These kids are nonverbal, and what you do is you have buttons or things that they can press that can communicate for them. They'll say the word. They press the button, says the word. And there's a whole kind of pedagogy around that. Well, it turns out that you can use that same model, the buttons that speak a word. It turns out that you can give them to animals. You can give them to dogs. You can give them to horses. You can give them to elephants. You can give them to like. It turns out that when you teach the like a dog or a monkey or whatever to press the button to say the word, that they can communicate and they can express themselves and you can have conversations like not very complex conversations like they can express themselves and say things
Cool.
and so I am a part of like all of these pages of dogs that communicate with their owners through the buttons. And it really gives you insight because they have personalities, very distinct personalities. They have wants and needs, they love, there's an internal thought world, right, that they can communicate. And that really gives you the sense that, they are just like us, but they don't have the ability to talk, right? And so if we could bridge that gap, we could see how we're much closer to each other than we thought before. That they're not that the distance between human and animal is reduced when you provide means for other creatures to be able to communicate their thoughts.
Yes. Oh, I'm echoing a little bit. Yes, that's such a great point, and it's very interesting how they had a lot of like multiple research on that ability of communication. Remember Coco? It was a name of a was it a orangutan? No, she's not. I think she was a gorilla, right? Like the oldest gorilla that knew so many words, and she could use the sign language to communicate. Yeah, that's. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that.
Yeah, I know, but bonobos have hundreds of words. Hundreds. Like dogs maybe have meaning fewer words, but they're still words. There's still the ability to communicate thoughts. It's like that. It's enough there that you can. Or actually, the thing that's really shocking to me is how much they understand of what we're saying. They might not necessarily say a whole lot, but they certainly understand what we're saying. A lot more so than we understand. And I think that's something that we have to kind of like. If we were to really get that, then I think it would bridge that gap.
Yes, great point. Okay, so now I would love to give a megaphone to Mar de la Suara because he actually was a very polite gentleman to raise his hand, to be the first person to raise his hand. Okay, there you go. Here's the megaphone. I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, yeah, I was kind of going to go along the same lines that he was about animals. Certain animals have the same intelligence level as like 3-year-olds, 3 and 4-year-olds, as far as we know. And some maybe even more, like dolphins and certain birds and that sort of thing. So, I think we've always kind of, humans have sort of looked down upon animals as lesser beings than us, but I don't think that's a fair assumption to make. But I think, people may disagree with me on this, but animals are here. I mean, we do eat them. And I'm not going to become a vegetarian,
Anytime
because,
soon.
of an animal, because animals have a certain amount of intelligence. Pigs are very intelligent, and I eat pork. So I think, going along with what he was saying, well, animals need to be respected, and I can't stand someone that abuses an animal. They're like, to me, they're on the same level as someone who molests a child. But I'm not going to put animals in the same category as humans. I'm going to continue to eat beef and that sort of thing. And, that's just that's how I feel about the whole matter, I guess.
Very honest answer, yeah. Thanks for saying that, because last time I remember my husband, he always is present mostly when I have my events, not today, but still. I was defending animals and saying something, and he's like, "What? Look at you! She just like a few hours ago you were eating something like cooked with meat or something." And I'm like, "Yeah, that is true. It's so I would, to be honest, I think I'm on the same in practical sense. I think I'm on the same page with you, where I do respect animals, and I think that in the future we have to change the way we do things. But as of today, this is the way things are. And unfortunately, I don't think that I can change much by just becoming a vegetarian, because living in Russia, vegetarianism is just like the area where I live in. My friend has been a vegetarian for many years, and her relatives, oh my goodness, it's just so funny how they see it as such a deviant behavior. Like, what? Are you a vegetarian? Why would you even do that? Like, you haven't never tried the decent meat, probably. Let us cook some meat for you. So yeah, and it was barely real for her, like a feasible option for her to go to some restaurant or a cafe or eat anything, because there are no options for vegetarians and like that are gonna be rich with protein and everything. And she constantly has some little problems with the level of ferritin in her blood. It's like iron, and it kind of takes away your energy. And proteins is like level is low, because the products that can compensate for meat, I think they're not as widely available in the areas like we live. Okay, so I don't want to steal your thoughts, so let me see. I have some more hand raises, so let me hand the megaphone to more people to express their opinions. Okay, Mystic, yay! Let me give you a megaphone right now. Here.
Great. So my comment sort of is tangential to the gentleman's comment from the standpoint of youth. So as I mentioned earlier, directed to Paige's comment, I have a 7-year-old. And so for me, before I get to Anima rights, there has to be a building blocks, sort of like a Lego style of design, to help her understand the context of life and what it means to live. So for me, with young people, and in particular my daughter, I started out with just, hey, look, we have to respect life and its diversity regardless of its relationship to us. What I started to see in her, just based on looking at YouTube videos and interacting with other children, it seemed to be like this very distinct thing where things were classified as pests, like an ant didn't deserve to live, fly didn't deserve to live, a cicada didn't deserve to live, because in her mind, she felt as if that particular thing that had life threatened her, a bee, anything, it didn't deserve to live. So I had to start foundationally and say, anything with life is of importance. Then she started to recognize the fact that when she was consuming meat products, that even though it's in a totally different shape, when we're at maybe a safari or maybe we're at a zoo, she didn't necessarily relate the phenology or the shape of whatever of the animal to what was on her plate. She began to understand that, hey, look, as mommy was teaching me about the value of life for the insect, I have to transfer that value to what's on my plate, what I'm actually eating on a day-to-day basis. And then she started to graduate and say, well, I really enjoy eating meat, but I feel bad. So she started to become empathetic, which led into the conversation that we're having today of animal rights. So even at 7 years old, I've started having the conversations with her about the beginning, the foundation of life, but then evolving to what we classify as higher forms of life. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. When you said like even at 7 years old, I'm like, wow, at 7 years old, I had these questions. These were first questions. I think kids are, well, just remembering myself even gives me a hint that kids are much more aware of what's going on than like many adults are. And I remember how like I had these thoughts, and even like starting at the age of 10, I think I was so concerned about these questions that I physically couldn't eat meat by that point, because for years and years I've been thinking about how wrong this world is, and I was sincerely worried about the nature, and I wanted to do something to protect it and somehow to change the world. Every time I had a chance to make a dream, I would say, I wish there were no cars in the world because they're damaging they pollute the air. And again, coming back to that reality, it was not as popular at that time in education or everywhere else. I was just starting to be exposed to this, BBC videos and everything, like because Russia had an exposure in the 90s. We started having exposure to some materials and goods from Western world, and this was like one of the first things that made me think that wow. And yeah, there's so many points I would like to make. Is like, first of all, it's true. Children are not exposed to wildlife as much. I had a childhood where I had to, catch, we would go fishing because we lived close to the river, like maybe 50 feet or something. I don't know. I use metric system, so I might not be correct, but it was very close. And every day I would be, just because I didn't go to the kindergarten and we had a big yard, I would spend a lot of time, wandering around and looking at the nature. I could see like little bees and little flies, and my father even would say, "Oh, you pity the flies that are stuck in our, behind our window more than some people." Like I'm like, yeah, because people can protect themselves and creatures they can't, and we have to, be somehow like more merciful towards them and helpful. So yeah, I had crooked values in my childhood and in my surroundings opinion, because I think it is very important how many people in the society care about anything, like animal rights or like a political situation or anything. I think this is such an important point, that we have to have communities and more of a significant numbers and proportions of people who care about things to really change something. And unfortunately, I wasn't that trailblazer who, helped people to get acquainted with big problems. Maybe I should do more, but still, I think that we can do more, but certainly. And yeah. I like the thought of my friend. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, just to echo the fact of conscious parenting. So it really starts with youth. And the young people are in the next generation. Of course, we can change as well, don't get me wrong, but if we want it to be sustainable, then as a parent, you have to be conscious and make sure that your child is conscious as well in how he or she navigates the world.
Definitely. It's always a collective, a result. The result never comes from just one direction, because parents, certainly, they influence children so much, especially in at the young age. And about parenting, actually, my sister, I remember the example with my nephew, where there was like a religious holiday or something, and my sister explained to my nephew that it's like a religious holiday, and we have to to kill a sheep to help the people in need and share some meat with them and all that. And such a holiday and this and that. And he's like, why does the God want us to kill any animals? That's not fair. I'm like, yes, this guy has the logic, has the point. And it was a very logical question, because he said, we don't have any poor, people to help with, to share the meat with. Why would we even, kill an animal or a living creature for nothing, basically, for just a holiday? And these are the right questions to ask. And he was just 5 or 6 at that time. So I think these kids have that even at the intuitive level. And if parents, are in communion with them and they explain and discuss these things, that certainly shapes the way people see the world, like young kids and children. Okay, anybody else wants to share their thoughts? I wrote down some comments, and if I just don't want to steal the the anybody's thoughts, but if you mind, maybe I can share some thoughts. Okay. Oh, is it hand raised that I see? Paige, right? Let me give you a megaphone right now. Okay. Oh, you do have a megaphone. Excellent. Mm-hmm.
I was just saying, it's like we've like talked about so many topics already really quickly, but where one part of what I wanted to say, and we talked about it a little bit last night, Leila and I did, whenever the topic, when someone said what the topic was going to be today, and I think there's just the reality of nature that in the circle of life that we are going to eat. Some of us are going to eat animals, and I think that's okay, personally, and I think it should be done responsibly, obviously. But I think that that's just sort of a normal, like we're animals too, and so it's sort of a normal thing. As long as we're, like I said, doing it ethically and responsibly, and I don't know what that line means. I was just going to tell a story about whenever I was growing up, because I grew up. I just remember one place that we lived there. It was big fields and woods everywhere, and my brother and I had BB guns and pellet guns. And there were cows in the backyard, like in the field, behind the backyard, and we would go out there, and it was really wrong. But we would shoot the cows with in the butt or near their butt with the BB gun. We would shoot each other with BB guns too, just so everyone knows. This wasn't
equally violent
like
to all the creatures.
Really irresponsible and awful. we would have BB gun wars with each other. We would shoot them, and they would go moo, and like sometimes they would walk, and sometimes they wouldn't. I think it just kind of felt like a sharp mosquito or something. But anyway, we were raised, and we weren't allowed to kill any animal unless we were going to eat it. Period. Dot. Like no animals, like no killing animals, basically. And if we did, then it would only be for eating. And I think that's the way that my dad was teaching us that hunters aren't evil people, because we read Bambi, and like we just loved animals because we're kids, Anyway, one day my brother had me come outside. He was 2 years younger than me, so maybe I was 12 and he was 10. And he had the BB gun and I had the pellet gun, and he was like, there was a squirrel, and he said, okay, I'm going to shoot it, and as soon as I shoot it, I want you to shoot it. And I said, okay. And he shot it, and it immediately just started squealing and almost doing cartwheels. And I did not expect that. I was just really naive, I think. And since we had shot cows and they didn't give it crap, and we'd shot each other, I didn't know that this was about to happen. But he shot it, and the squirrel just started flipping around. And my brother was looking at me like, shoot it, it's hurt. And so I shot it, and it died. And I mean, I was devastated. And I went to my room, and I was crying, and I was just so upset. And then my dad came home, and he said, well, then we're going to eat it. And he made me be in the kitchen, and him and my brother skinned it. And I had to watch this happen and cleaned up it. And I mean, it broke my heart. This was completely not the day I knew. I did not wake up knowing that this was going to happen. But anyway, I don't know what the point of that story is, except that that's how I was raised with it. And then of course abusing animals. I was never raised to we weren't allowed to hit a dog or anything. But I've seen it so much where people think it's okay, to, a dog pees on the floor, and someone just kicks them or something. And I think it's illegal, I think, but it's common sometimes in some parts of the world to treat animals that way, and it's awful.
It is. There are worse cases even. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's minimum, right? That's the little, you're just in my opinion, kind of you're either completely oblivious or you just don't have a heart if you can just hurt like another animal for being an animal, right? If the dog's got to pee and you don't
Somewhere, yeah.
take it to a place where it can pee, then it is going to pee because that's what animals do, just like us. So
And yeah, like
my
here in
little
VR,
stories.
yeah, some people don't know how to behave because it's their first time. For animals, it's pretty much the same. They're used to, and they have instincts for one lifestyle, and we force them basically to have a different lifestyle, and we're surprised why they don't want to comply to the rules that we made for them. So not all animals are suitable for being pets, unfortunately or fortunately, but people still force them to be pets. Like for example, some people like raccoons or just some animals are really wild, and when you try to take them as a pet, you have to be ready to face the consequences. And unfortunately, it's like behind the closed doors. This is what happens. I think that people take advantage of those animals and try to force them to follow the rules. Yeah. I think this is the minimum thing. Your story is just heartbreaking, but yeah, I think this is more or less. I think every child has some experience with animals, and it's such a thing that sometimes you always have like a situation where you have to choose what to do, like how to which decision to make, and that's not always very ethical because there's nobody to control you at some points, and there's nobody to tell you what to do in all the situations, and sometimes just people randomly make their decisions based on their own feelings. And I think in a lot of cases when people are violent with other creatures, other humans or children, as Mardel as far said, I like how you said that animal abuse is pretty much like abusing children because they can't protect themselves. And yeah, I think those people, in many cases, I think it's a problem and trauma that they might have from some other experience, and they might have this problem of violence towards them, and that's why they see it as something that is an accepted part of behavior and part of life. And maybe sometimes they just want to maybe they have to be different people in the regular situations, and that's why maybe they secretly do these things to let their shadow out. And these are all interesting questions. And yeah, the lifestyle has changed so much, and that's another interesting question. That children don't see animals I think the animals have changed so much, and like all these dogs that all the breeds that are in the world, and people control and influence their development. Like so many different, like pugs, for example, so many different animals, and dogs in particular have such crazy problems with their health because of our breeding and selection process that we imposed on them. So we forced them to be like sick in some cases, and for the sake of our own needs, and sometimes even not needs, just wishes. Yeah. So, and about the bees, do you know the situation in the world about the bees? Like a few months ago, people talked about the bee apocalypse. Like for a few years, I hear these conversations because there are so many different factors that influence that, and people have no idea, I think, in the majority of cases, how important bees are for our life. Because some creatures we might think, oh, these are just insects. We can just get rid of them because they're useless for us. They have no use whatsoever, so we can just destroy them. But with bees, I think people don't realize how important they are for our lifestyle and for our survival even, because I think the third of the food that we have on our tables are dependent on the bees, because they're pollinators, and they should live, and they should continue their life because they pollinate so many different types of plants and trees, that we need them to have all these fruits on our tables, and not only fruits but many other different types of food. And because of the frequencies and the pests that they have, like the different mite species, they attacked beehives, and they cripple the bees basically even before they're born, where they're like deform their wings, and they're just like parasites on the hive. Some people say that the frequencies, like the Wi-Fi frequencies and phone frequencies that we use, they sometimes disrupt their flight and disrupt their navigation system, I guess. And just bees have been the experience in a very heavy influence by human activity, I think, lately especially. And in America, in some states, there were like 80%, 70% of the population of bees dying and like causing a lot of trouble. So I think that not many people are aware of that. Luckily, we have some solutions already, and I think the problem is just being, the situation is being improved, but still. Just curious how we have so many other things to care about that animals just like they take such a little space in our minds, I think. And if you compare generations, probably because like the older you are, the more exposure you probably had to the real animal activity somehow, like cows or sheep wandering around. I have seen like even snakes in like in my real life, where there was like a little snake in my garden, and we had some of those cases, and we had to somehow figure out what's the interconnection and intercorrelation and relationship between us and the nature that surrounds us. But with kids living in urban areas and using so much internet and like spending so much time at home, I think that this gap becomes even larger. And with more population in the world, we need to eat more, and unfortunately we don't do that in a very sustainable way. We just make the lives of many creatures just unbearable just to breed them and to eat as food. Like with pigs, for example, somebody mentioned pigs. Pigs have a very sensitive psyche, actually. They are very emotionally, sensitive creatures. That's why some farms, they have to use antidepressants and like different substances to keep them more, calm and docile. So that way they don't stress out and they don't die earlier. So yeah, many things. I don't want to even get deeper in that right now, because there's so many crazy things that we do, like the industries that we have created to feed ourselves. Sometimes they do crazy, violent things to creatures that we consume, including pigs and chickens and all that. It's just me talking, guys. Maybe do you want to continue the conversation?
Yeah. So the conversation.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but let me give you a microphone if you don't have it. Yeah, you still have it, right? Okay.
Yeah. So your conversation regarding bees, sort of to extend that conversation, what speak of in the environmental science communities is the keystone species. They're species in which if their existence is tampered with, entire ecosystems are altered and some habitats will completely die. So for us, ironically, a keystone species is the bee. If bees disappear, we disappear. It's really just that simple. And so it goes back to my earlier conversation of where I was teaching my daughter, because the bee is a great model for respecting life and animal life, insect life, because the bee can kill as well, especially if you have an allergy. So children and people in general, their fear is warranted, because if that bee stings you, I'm one of those folks. If the bee stings me, I can expire. I mean, literally. And I'm allergic. So it's very difficult to teach value of life and value of an animal species or insect when that particular animal or species can directly influence your ability to exist. So it just broadens that conversation even more, in my opinion. But that's why I brought in the context of keystone species. I mean, elephants are keystone species, wolves are keystone species. They're keystone for other populations of living creatures, but they also have an impact on us. But, just to echo my point, bees are keystone species for human beings. If they do not exist, literally humans cannot exist on Earth. It's really just that simple.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, like all those keystone species kinds, and it is such an interesting question. How again we come back to this conflicts between emotional, reaction to things and our truly humane. I would say it's a truly humane perspective to things where you can use your, I would say, logic, just logic, I guess, combined with this holistic quality of a consciousness to understand what's really what should be done instead of just following your emotional reactions. I just remember how in America I had a case where I worked in a place where there was like some sweets, and somebody dropped an ice cream in summer, and there was like a hive of I think there were wasps, but people were just so afraid of them, like running away, and there was like such a panic, and I couldn't understand. I could see from far away that something is going on and people are freaking out, and I'm like, what's wrong? And I saw that the situation was about the wasps, and everybody were so scared and they didn't know what to do and how to handle that. So everybody were so shocked when I just took a big cup of water and I just like poured it over the sweet, so that way it doesn't attract the wasps and the bees or any other dangerous species. And they were like, wow, how could you do that? It's just because I had more exposure to such wasps and bees, and I knew how to handle that. And unfortunately, some people, just because they hear that bees might sting you and like wasps might sting you, they are so afraid that they can't fight against their fear and their emotional reaction, just to do things that should be done to avoid any conflict between species. Anyway, sorry, Mardalswar, I've kept you waiting for such a long time. I just saw your hand raised, so let me give you a megaphone so you can pour your thoughts. There you go.
Okay, well, one thing I'm actually curious about is mosquitoes. This may sound, I mean, maybe just ignorance on my part, but they've actually killed more human beings than any other creature on Earth, through malaria. And I don't really see what the point of their existence is. I mean, I see a mosquito, I'm going to kill it. I don't, I mean.
No second thought, right?
Hard, I suppose, but.
They're not keystone species, who cares?
To me, they're not. To me, they're a pest. I mean, and I'll break out a can of Raid and do whatever I have to do to get rid of it. So, I don't know how they fit into the scheme of things other than maybe being food for bats or whatever.
Yes, that's what was my point.
But anyway, the thing I was going to bring up is I live in a rural part of the United States, and we have what they call factory farms here. And this goes back to animal cruelty. If you've ever been in one, these animals are subjected to terrible living situations, but they're food. And, you really can't avoid, if you eat meat at all here in the United States, you're going to buy meat that was raised in a factory farm. I've been inside them. I've seen how they operate, and it's inhumane the way these animals are treated. And but what can you?
Sai Prasad, hello. Is it your first time in VR? Can you hear me? Hold on. Hello, is it your first time in VR? Hi. It's theory of everything. So everybody's, everybody express their opinion, and we talk about different things. But I prefer when people talk just one in a row. So if you can mute yourself while you're not talking, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, sorry for this. I'll mute my.
No problem, no problem. You know, some people are just new to things. So, yeah, thank you. Continue, Mardelsvar.
Oh, yeah, okay, we're that. But yeah, I mean, if you've ever been inside, my point was about factory farms. How we raise animals, and we don't care about the life that they leave. They just the end result is how much meat can they provide. I mean, they'll pump them full of all these chemicals to, make them bigger. I mean, I've seen chicken legs as big as turkey legs, because of the way what they put into these animals for us to eat. And I don't like it, but I don't know what else we can do to feed the population that we have without it. So
That's the biggest
it's
question,
kind of
I think.
yeah, it's a mixed blessing. I mean, these poor animals, their short lives are, it's a cruel existence for them, and then they die just so we can, eat. And like I said, I'm not willing to give up meat. I mean, I'm just not going to do that. So I don't know what the answer is for that.
I think the
Anybody have any suggestions?
yeah, I think the numbers always
Okay,
can help figure out how to solve the problem because maybe at least if we eat less meat, or maybe if we can find some ways to find a common solution for things like, well, of course there are some high, top shelf technologies that can grow protein and like just tissues in and like or artificial meat in the laboratory, but I believe that with any
Yes.
technology, it's going to be super expensive in the beginning, and it's just cheaper to exploit somebody's life and just kill them to eat. But I think there are solutions.
And I eat. There's like a beef jerky that's plant based. It's called Beyond Meat. I'm not advertising for them, but it's plant that tastes like beef.
Yeah,
But
soy.
like
Soy
I said, it's
also.
really expensive. It's really expensive, but I don't know. I'm just not gonna. I'm just not in my lifetime. I'm not going to give up eating meat. I'm just not going to do it. Sorry, if that offends me. I used to date a girl that was a vegetarian. And I remember I took her out to dinner one time, and she ordered a salad, and I ordered a steak, and she got really pissed off at me. Tried to tell her, I said, I'm just trying to make sure this poor cow didn't die in vain.
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
So
yeah.
our relationship didn't go very far because of our eating our differences, but it's just.
Yeah, the
Really
friend
good,
that I
I
mentioned, her husband really likes meat, so she has to tolerate. Sometimes she's like, I'm not willing to cook it. If he cooks for himself, at least that's the biggest compromise that we might find. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I have some comments about that, but I see some hand raises. Sam and Sai Prasad. Prasad, if you are. Oh, also Caligula. I think Caligula was higher on the wait list. Hold on a second. Something's wrong with my page. There you go. Oh, Caligula. Let me give you a megaphone. There.
Thank you, thank you. He was
Can I
speaking
speak
about.
Yeah, sure. Prasad, I'll give you a megaphone a little bit later, if you don't mind. Yes. Let's listen to
So he
Caligula.
was speaking about factory farms, and I live in California in the United States. We frequently vote on initiatives, changes to the law, and a few years back, one of them involved chickens and the way that they're housed before being slaughtered. And apparently, chickens are not able to move at all. They're just in really tiny enclosures. And so the law, that initiative was to force factory farms to give chickens enough space to at least move around and have some form of movement in life. And so that was really an ethical dilemma for myself and others to vote on. We care about the chicken's rights and their life experience, but you're also making food more expensive for people who may be struggling to even afford food. So it was kind of difficult. I voted in favor of chickens' life, I suppose, and it did pass. But yeah, that was a difficult vote to take because you can certainly see both sides of the scale. You know,
Hmm.
thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah, I think California is one of the leading places in the world that have these, push these initiatives towards the rest of the world, because it's like a very, I think, a rich area, first of all, because like people have like a lot of things that are available to them, and due to, I think, somehow like more development there in terms of, ethical changes and development. I think that many initiatives, especially with the vegans and like vegetarianism, I think it comes like some tendencies like healthy lifestyle comes from there. I'm sure that any problem has solutions. I'm sure that any problem has a solution, because it's just when it's cheaper and we really don't care, then we say, oh, okay, it's going to be too difficult, too cheap, too expensive to change, and it's just the way it is. But I think when we truly are willing to solve the problems, there's so many ways we can, come up with, because humans, I think the nature, I think we're gonna talk about it like in some next events about the AI actually, and just the idea that something more powerful like a synthetic life can come to reality, and we can face this challenge from some superior life form. I think it can challenge the way we see things, and if we put ourselves into other creatures' shoes, I think that when we put more priority towards that, it's going to be very possible to find solutions. Because I think one of the things that makes humans truly superior to many, like I think even like just the representatives of our own species, is creativity. I think human mind is capable of so much creativity that we don't even closely touch upon. We have so much potential that we never use, because we just accept the solutions that we have because we are not fully awake. I think that many humans are not humane yet. They're not truly humans, in my opinion, because that we don't use so much of our true nature, in my opinion, that we have the reality that gives us so many possibilities today, and I'm sure, I'm optimistic about the future, and I think that we'll start, realizing a lot of the potential. And I think creativity and solving the problems is one of those, traits that we have to truly take advantage of, and, come up with solutions. Because if you don't eat meat, we could eat less meat, right? And start there, because it's true that Uncle Paul, hey, I see you on the map. Are you there? Yeah. Hey, hi, there you are. Hi. Nice to see you here. So I think we can start eating less meat, I guess, and this initiative of spreading the vegetarian lifestyle and mindset, I think, is one of the steps towards the spreading the information and bringing more awareness to this problem. And just having, instead of like 5 meals, you can have like 3.5 meals and replace the rest with some substitution, or just to spread information about how we could gain the same result for our health, like to stay healthy, but we could use some alternative things. For example, hemp is one of the the sources of very high quality protein, and I think that we could take advantage of such things, and we could use so many different things that we never heard about. Just if we learn about them, and we can take advantage of those things, and to just reduce the Sai, you're so insistent. Yeah. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm sure that there's always the middle ground, right? And I agree with Mardella Smart. I think we're not ready to just say a no to using, to eating meat just today, because our health is, we are omnivores, and our lifestyle for centuries and thousands of years formed our digestive systems to using meat and different kinds of meats. But I think we can come up with some middle solution, right? Where we can come up with some substitutes or combinations that could be rather sustainable for our digestive systems. And maybe we can eat more of a vegetarian diet, but add some supplements like iron to our food, so that way it doesn't harm our health that much. And there are more radical solutions like controlling the population growth, right? Because more people needs more food. And that's why, there's even some crazy idea, not crazy, I think not less crazy than reducing the population, is getting protein from cockroaches. Was it cockroaches or grasshoppers? I think grasshoppers. That was the high quality. Yeah, Mendez just messaged me that he can't attend, and I think we are soon anyway heading towards the end of our event. So yeah, we could come up with some solutions. I'm sure of it, and I think that we could just. First of all, you have to understand and realize that you have any kind of problem, and then the next step is to trying to solve that. And we can always do that gradually and little by little to achieve some level of, or something like what Caligula mentioned, that maybe we can still eat meat, but to make it more ethical, right? Instead of being so violent to creatures. There's so many things that make me, it's just like I am so shocked and devastated on. And at the same time, I can easily imagine that what people do to animals that are like in these farms, and how violent we are towards the animals, just because we need to solve some problems and produce more meat and to do things. There are crazy things that happen there, like, and I don't want to even share it with you. Just yesterday I was reading a book about the cats, and it's like a fiction book where there's the main character is a cat. So an author that I like, Bernard Werber, he's a French writer. He likes to bring some science pieces in his books, and he also mentions some of the atrocities that were committed in some like farms of swine and all that. So yeah, but I'm sure we can find a solution once we realize that there is a problem and that we truly value other life, and which is another good question, because I think so much like safety in our world makes it for some young people not realize and not understand how valuable life is, because there are so many suicides. I heard statistics. On YouTube, there's an available film that is called Childhood 2.0, something like that, that shows how much, how many kids die at, commit suicides at a very early age, at 10, 12. Teenagers, they commit suicide because they don't see the value anymore so much, because they're so stressed and depressed by life, and they don't struggle so much in their life, and maybe that kind of takes away their attention to some other things, and they just get stuck in their vicious cycle, especially if somebody's bullying them. Hello. So yeah, I've seen some hand raises, so let me give megaphones to people to share their opinion. Okay, Sam, Paige, and Marta Lassoir 3 minutes ago. Sam, you've been waiting for a long time, so let me give you a megaphone.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Carnivores, so I was going to say,
Carnivores, do you mind if
I'm a meat eater. I'm trying to eat more vegetables. But one thing that would probably help me is if I could see on the packaging whether the meat comes from a battery farm, or if it's, I know there's organic, but I'm not sure that is 100% like truthful. I think there's like some, things to that aren't, that don't mean that the chicken doesn't grow up in a nice farm or whatever. So yeah, it was that, and then the other thing I'd say is about like religious, like killing of animals. Like quite a lot of restaurants now will serve chicken that's like halal and things like that. Whereas as a choice, I probably wouldn't pick that, because I think they kill the animal like not as in a nicer way, So yeah, and then the last thing was about like more of a question is like, what about lab grown meat? Like, what do you think about the prospect of meat grown in a lab? Like the scientists are starting to grow like skin for humans and things like that. If they could grow meat that's the same as from a cow, then
they can, but
is that ethically the same as eating a...
I think they can already. I've seen some news about some technologies that can produce meat that is edible in the laboratory. That it does exist. This technology exists already, but I think it's just going to be so expensive that it's not going to be a real decision right now. Solution, I mean. Hey Mendez, you're here.
I see. Yeah.
Okay, thanks
Yeah,
for
that was
sharing.
it, pretty much.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I've seen some people come and go, unfortunately. So, Paige, would you like to say anything? Let me give you a megaphone. You do have a megaphone, right?
You sort of mentioned it a while ago, so I'll just really quick, but it's something that's sort of been on my mind probably like a month now. Ethically deciding to not have as many children. And I don't mean that in a way to have, like, I'm the oldest of five, and my sister-in-law just had her fourth baby this morning, and it's my sister's birthday too, so now they share, my nephew shares his first day of life on my sister's, and I'm so happy and thankful to have this, like, beautiful, big family, and our love multiplies, and it just grows, and, like, it's just amazing. And, you know, um, I have one, and if I wanted to have two, I think that would be okay too. But I think that for those of us that so choose, we can, when given, should we have another child, or should I have another child, or what to do about this, if we want to, I think that we could maybe just choose to lean towards no, if it's not needed. I think for some people, there's like a intrinsic need. It's like an inherent, like an animalistic need to have more children, and I understand that, and I would never take that away from anybody. But for those of us who don't have that need, I think we could just decide, to not have as many children, and maybe spread the word that we don't have to, quadruple our population like all the time, and and then there would be less demand for meat, and then prices would go down, and we'd have more space and time to figure out how to do things more ethically. So that's sort of my 2 cents on that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for mentioning that. I think that some people find it, they take these ideas with some hostility, I think, because they say, can we, they see it as such a sacred topic, like, oh, how can we not have children? It's such a, it's a meaning of life to have children. I'm not sure about other countries, but I certainly live in a society where if you get married and after, half a year, if you don't have children, something's wrong with you. Like, why do you even get married if you don't have kids as fast as possible? So I think that a lot of that kind of leads to this, irresponsible parenting a lot, because especially for some ladies who are not ready to have children, and many of them they are ready, and I'm happy to see how some parents are like such a great parent, couples, for example. But I think it is an important question to bring up, and however, I think there should be some certain level of logic that people use, I would say, because some people, they just follow the certain way of life, and take the rules as as something that is just like a dogma almost, and they don't even think about they don't apply any of their own common sense to things that are going on, and whether they should change the rules or not. They just follow the rules, and they don't even question them, which is not bad, maybe, because some of the people I'm jealous. they live such a purposeful life, and I'm just thinking about all these things too much, and maybe that's not the best way to solve the problems. But definitely, I think that's just a common sense when you think about some problems, and you think maybe we should start thinking about planning families, and chasing quality rather than quantity, and have less children. And I think this process is actually like present in many countries. We can see that like with Nigeria having like 5 to 7 children on average per woman. We like the better the country lives, for example, it moves towards the, for example, Scandinavian countries where people have less children, like one or two, and to some like severe examples like South Korea. South Korea has a very big crisis right now, I think, in what's going on from what I hear, because it had the lowest level of fertility rate per woman like a couple of years ago. They had less than one child per family per woman per lifetime, which is a very low level. And I think that's a stressful situation for people, and that's why they don't have kids. But I think there's something in the middle, something where we can see the shift from from quantity of children to quality, and how parents invest into their upbringing of kids. Mardo Oswar, I gave you a megaphone. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I lived in
well,
South Korea for a couple of years, and I'm so sorry. And they, the population was so high. We were the space, like your bubble, right? Your personal space hasn't. I don't know who's been to South Korea, but like on a train, or if you get on an elevator, or even walking in line, or walking down the streets. It is very normal just to be like body to body with people. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, people would park their car and leave their car in the middle of the road, like a busy road. And that was just culturally how they had to do things. You left your car in neutral and you parked in a parking lot, literally. And so that way the person who had to park maybe behind you would push your car out of the way so they're not blocking you in, and let you block them in. It was just very overpopulated. And so I wonder if that was just again, like a conscious decision, or maybe subconsciously, we literally don't have really that much room to have as many people as we do now. And I understand the impact of like a very like low pleading population as far as maybe like our mindset, and then sustainability of future generations. Like, I get it. Like, there's fear involved if we think about no more of us, right? Just is. It just seems inconceivable and scary. But I don't know if it's important. Like, I don't
Good
know
question.
if it's important. And I wonder if we're a keystone species for anything.
Good question to pose. Right.
Mosquitoes, maybe.
You never know.
If we
Yeah.
want mosquitoes to go away, then we need to stop having babies. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
That's
Mardo
a tough,
Oswar.
that's a tough conversation, because it often spins off into a lot of spaces that many of us don't want to go down when you start talking about population control, because the first question is, whose population to control? And like the host, you started out the conversation in Nigeria, saying 5 to 7, and then you sort of built from that. And whether that was conscious or subconscious, there are many people who believe that the population control narrative is focused on black and brown areas, communities that are predominantly of color. So we have to tread very lightly when we're having this conversation, because whose population are we targeting to control?
Exactly. I think that it should be a conscious decision, because when you start about thinking about the details of this, it kind of gets very dark, because and I think the question that we should pose is not always the number of people, but also the lifestyle that we have. I think we should work in both directions, because you probably have seen this picture, right, where you have a picture of a street, and like when people own cars, how much space they take, and if they just use the public transport, how much less time and space they take, and just building cities and building communities just like in a sustainable, logical way makes a lot of sense. Because, for example, America is just 300 million people, whereas India or China is like 1.3 billion people, which is like 4 times more. But just the lifestyle is so different, and I think we should we should come up with a good solution. And I think the African countries, they have higher rates of birth because they have different lifestyle that we used to have, like all the countries used to have like some time ago. And what we have to do is to invest into the education and to solve the problem, or if it's even a problem, just to correct the way we live in all the aspects, like to change the lifestyle so that way it's more sustainable. Why would you have a car just to have a car to show off in the society and show your status, if you could just if you live so close to your job and you don't even have to use the transport, for example? Maybe we can reduce that part, maybe. Or like I like this idea that in the United States, if you have like a heavily occupied car or something like that, vehicle, you can have like a faster lane. So people, it would be a great idea to have a car in a community, not only in every family. And some families have 2 cars in America. And maybe it could be solved by just simply communicating or trying to solve these, issues. And I'm sure that we all, as I said, like there's so much creativity that is hidden there and that we could use to, first of all, understand that the world is united. There's no, countries and regions. For me, there's like one united space where we live, and we have to come up with solutions for our common goal with respect to every nation, to every color, to every situation. Just given what we have today, and try to do our best to find solutions for the best of our future. I think that's what we didn't.
But before we get to the conversation of population control, that's like very drastic and it's on fire. The majority of habitat destruction, ecosystem challenges reside within developed nations.
Exactly, that's
It's
what I'm
about
saying.
the equitable use of resources. So it's not about the number of people, it's about how we utilize the resources we currently have. That really is the challenge. If you have 1% of the population, which is the Western world, or 2% using 70% of the resources, then of course population control may appear to be your solution. But it's a false equivalence.
Yes.
Because really the solution resides within the developed nations, the Western world, and how the Western world is going about living its life. How do we interact with each other? What resources do we use? Like, why do we need 5,000 square foot homes? Why do we all need cars? Why do we need meat on a day-to-day basis? I mean, I'm not questioning it. I'm just saying that if we're going to have this conversation from a truthful standpoint, population is not the challenge. It's the concentration of resources and those resources being used and consumed by a select group of people.
Exactly, that's such a great point. As I said, creativity and logic that we should apply to solving problems, and communication is where we are going to find the right solutions. We can just speculate on what we think is the problem, but I think when we truly want to change something, it should be a global communication, which we don't currently have. We have so many conflicts, and just like conflict of interests in every country, and fossil fuels. Where Russia just lives off the selling its resources and fossil fuels cheaply, and Arabic countries also, and the Western world kind of promotes these healthy kind of principles, but based on these resources that are cheaply bought from other countries. It's very easy to appear nice and rational when you have like cheap resources to build your system on. So I think there are many points that, thanks for pointing that out. It's true that our lifestyle, not only the number of people, but the way we live and the way we communicate, and the principles that we put, I think, are important. Okay, let me see if I missed anybody on the list of hand raises. Okay, I think that we're...
Marvel Fargo?
Yeah, I see you on the list.
Yeah,
But
now you guys are making me feel bad.
no, you should not be bad.
I actually own 2 cars, so no.
No, I mean
only
it's
right
just
one
it's
at
just a
time.
fact. It's what we have today, and as I said, I eat meat. This is just the system that we live in, and first of all, we should discuss these things to find out whether we do that for some real purpose or is it just like because it's a rule.
I just like the convenience of having two vehicles. But anyway, the thing I was wanting to go back to population control. Now they tried that in China, I think. You know, it was one child per family. Well, I think way I understand it, they always the Chinese culture preferred having boy babies. You know, 'cause
Yes.
boys would grow up and take care of their parents, and they would abort the females if they knew it was going to be a female. So now, from what I've read, that there is actually a shortage of women in China,
Yes, that's what
which
I
is
heard
going
too.
to be a problem. Which is a problem. So,
Yeah, already.
You can't. You know, you have a bunch of young men that. You know, I mean, I'm speaking as a former young man. I know. You know, you need females around. I mean, they temper us. You know, they. So you know, I'm definitely against limiting how many children, you know, people can have. I mean, I've had two sons. I've raised two sons, and I regret not having a daughter.
Have your
I've
granddaughter,
got a
right?
granddaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wish I had a daughter of my own. You know, I mean, my son has my granddaughter, who I adore, but I, you know, I just wish that I would have had a daughter somewhere along the line, but I didn't. So, you know, I'm where I'm at. But yeah, as far as controlling the population, that's a very dangerous line to cross.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it's a very dark question if we like get deeper into it, and there are so many conspiracy theories around it. But I think the first step for now, we are not at that late stage where we can do that, you know, sustainably. Well, what we can do today is just discuss things and maybe filter out what are the things that in our life that are truly, you know, needed, necessary for us, and what are the things that we actually just follow the, you know, somehow the majority of people and acquire things that we don't even truly need. Or yeah, just discussing is the first step, always like having this communication at first. So yes, okay, I think we're heading towards the end of our event. Thanks everybody for coming. I'll have to run because I need to walk my dog and yeah, head into some other place. Thank you for coming. It was such a pleasure seeing you guys, and I was following the globe and seeing how people joined from different places. As always, a pleasure to talk to you guys. You can always stay here. I'm gonna keep the video for you to keep the vibe and atmosphere of the space, and this is a very good and interesting conversation. We'll definitely will continue in some other topics. So if you have any other ideas that you, or ideas for topics that you would like to discuss, you can have a little button over here, or just you can just simply message me on my here or on my email. So if you have some ideas, you can click this button and it's gonna take you to the browser. So I think if it's working, hopefully Mendez, I think he said that it's working. So you can send some ideas towards our way, so we could implement them. So yeah, I think we're gonna talk about these things in a lot because I still have some notes that I didn't voice out. So yeah, we can continue this conversation. So yeah, thanks everybody for coming. It's such a pleasure seeing you guys. Paige, isn't it funny?
Thank you.
Yeah, isn't it funny how
We
people?
really appreciate it.
Yay!
Yes, it
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
Okay, bye everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next
Bye.
time.
Bye-bye.
I wanted to make sure that
Alright.
everyone knows, like, I was not saying, like,